Here's a few other examples of images with good composition. Now with these images, which picture do you like most? Which picture do you like the least? Now that is a personal preference. Everyone watching this is going to have a different favorite and a different picture that they're not 100% fond of. Ask yourself why. What is it about the picture that draws you to it? What is it about the picture that makes you say, like, I really don't like that picture? All right, here's a few other images. We have interesting camera angles. We have good composition or placement of the subjects in our image. Now, color is something that you are working with all the time, especially with digital. I mean, you can change your images to black and white, but just to show you how important color can affect your image. And do a little bit of magic. There we go. That's better. All right, so some of these images looked much better as black and white. Some of them look better in color. All right, so first, the image in the top left. I believe this picture works better as black and white. Notice what happens when we change it to color. All right, we see that there is a busy background in either picture with the graffiti on the wall. However, adding color, our subject is now a little bit more lost. Her pants are yellow, and that color is blending into now the background. The picture on the top right is actually better in color. We kind of lose our subjects a little bit. Maybe we can tell because of their light shirts. However, when we have the picture in color, they stand out a lot more against the background. The other two pictures we change up a camera angle. The one of the family, we're taking the picture from directly above, which is called a bird's eye angle, whereas the image to the bottom right is called a canted image, where the camera is tilted. And this image works well either way, whether black or white. Although in the picture of the family, we do kind of lose the family in the black and white image. Photographers recording the same scene may create equally appealing photos by utilizing entirely different viewpoints, known as camera angles. So, looking at each of these images, what's the subject matter? You were thinking the city, you would be correct. But we see it here from 4 completely different angles, and we're about to learn them. The relationship between the camera and the object gives us emotional information to the viewer and guides the judgment about character or the object in the shot. The more extreme the angle, the more symbolic and the more heavily loaded the shot is. Let's start from the top, literally, bird's eye view. This shows the scene from directly above the subject at its zenith point. This can make the subject look insignificant, small, part of a wider scheme of things. Can you think of any movies or images you've seen that have been taken from this shot? Next, we have high angle. High angle is not as extreme as bird's eye. It's not directly above. However, it is still from above the scene looking down and at an angle. The subject still seems small and a little less significant and still part of a wider view. But like I said, bird's eye view is the most extreme shot. Eye level is a fairly neutral shot. The camera is positioned as though at human or actual observing height. Low angle, these type of images have a camera positioned at a lower position to the ground, looking up at the subject. It gives a feeling of increased height to the subject. a sense of speeded motion and a sense of powerlessness to the viewer because this object is so much bigger than us. Dutch or canted angle. Dutch or canted angle is when the view of the camera is tilted. What this does, it suggests an imbalance or a transition and instability. So these are just a few images and from known movies here, from Thor, from Harry Potter, where stuff's going on in the movie and everything's kind of topsy-turvy and there's a lot of instability, a lot of unknown what's going on. So that's the feeling. It gives that feeling of instability and imbalance. In class, we'll be doing this as Pear Deck. For those of you who are taking this, as you know, by this point, it is a ed puzzle, so you'll just be answering this question. What are the 5 different angles that you can photograph your subject from? Now we get onto the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds, instead of centering a subject, also called bullseyeing your subject, the rule of thirds instead places important elements or subjects on more interesting positions or intersections of imaginary lines, dividing the picture into thirds. As a result, photos can look more dynamic and interesting. Imagine 2 horizontal and 2 vertical lines intersecting an image with 4 intersecting points, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. Okay? This can be called a grid, and it's actually a setting in your camera. When you put this onto your camera, it helps you to position your subject. You can take the picture. The grid will not be in the picture. It is solely there to help you with placement. For landscape images, place the horizon line either in the upper or lower third in order to help create a well-balanced landscape composition photo. So if you notice in these 2 top pictures, the horizon line, or where the sky meets the ground, or the sky meets the water, that horizon line is in the lower third of the picture. What this does is it creates more focus and fills up more of the space with the sky. So if you have a beautiful sunset and there's bright, colorful clouds, it'd be best to place your horizon line in the lower third or along this lower line. These bottom 2 images, the horizon line is placed in the upper third of the picture, giving more space to the land rather than the sky. Something else I want you to notice with each of these pictures. Notice where 2 lines intersect. So in this picture, the rock is placed during one of those intersections. The picture over here, the boat is just about in that position. Same thing with the surfer right here, where 2 of the lines intersect. It's funny enough, I didn't realize until now that all of these images, or most of them, there is something at this point, this position, but it can be placed within any of those corners. The point is to avoid putting your subject or your horizon line directly in the center. For portraits, place the person where the lines intersect vertically, introducing a more compelling photo. Also, it's important to remember to give your subject a place to go, visual movement. As we discussed before, you don't want your subject walking out of the picture. Here's a few other pictures dealing with the rule of third and placing your subjects along the lines or along the intersections. Even more tidbits of information. The horizon line in your landscape photos should also never be tilted. They should either be in the upper or lower third and never tilted. So see how this picture, The artist wanted it to look this way, but once again, it gives the feeling of instability. But if you're trying to take a really good photo, the suggestion is not to tilt the horizon. And here's just an edited shot. You tell me, which picture do you like best? Tilted or not tilted? Fill the frame. So filling the frame means just that, is use the whole space within the frame to express the main subject. And then framing. Framing is a technique used where objects and lines surround or frame the main subject. And it makes a stronger composition. So here we are looking at a hurdler through the hurdles themselves. The hurdles framing the main subject. Same thing here with the volleyball player. Her teammates are framing her. Here, same thing. We are looking through the window of a train, and that window itself is the frame. So the main thing with rule of thirds and composition is to avoid centering your subject. This can make your subject look more static and makes for a little bit more boring of an image. Instead, work with the rule of thirds. Here we have those same images. Now watch what happens. This is where the treatment of cropping comes in. Cropping eliminates extra added information that is not needed. So what we did was, in the first picture, we cropped out that extra background of the wood, and we now have a much nicer composition following the rule of thirds. Our subject is no longer centered. She is off towards the right side. All right, our subject here in the Surf More Sleep Less shirt, he was still fully centered before. What we did is we cropped it in order to make the image more dynamic. So we see more of our subject. He's also, same thing, not bullseyed right in the center. He is a little bit more off to the side. Same thing with the bunny rabbit. We took out some of the information, cropped it, and now our subject is, same thing, to the right. And he is looking like he's going to be hopping into the picture even more. All right. So cropping is something we will be going over at a later time and will be a separate project. So keep in mind some of those images that you took while we were photographing outside, you will be using them very, very soon. All right, that is the end of our presentation. So this is all the information for the moment dealing with cropping.